everyone, welcome to another video on Love is Blind Season 7. This time we'll be looking at Monica and Steven and see what we can all reflect on via their story. Again, spoiler alert, this video is going to include episodes 1 to 8. I understand it's an edited show. I am only analyzing the characters portrayed. I also believe that people can grow and change. This analysis is only for our own learning and reflection. Please do not use what I say to bother the cast. So Monica and Steven had quite a clear-cut and abrupt end to their relationship due to Steven's infidelity.
Reading those text messages filled with fetishes and coming in, like, it's disgusting, Steven.
You're right.
And I am in no way saying that Monica should have seen it coming, but what Steven did to Monica was essentially what he said he did to his ex.
I basically slid into a girl's DMs like a dumbass, and we were flirting with intention. You're emotionally cheating at that point. I got caught, which I knew I would. I was very disappointed with myself.
And I wanted to explore reasons for Steven's infidelity besides assuming the worst in him. And I preface this by saying that this does not excuse his behavior. I just believe that every hurtful or abusive behavior is always born out of some trauma, and understanding the reasons behind it is part of the work towards stopping that behavior. And understanding does not mean condoning. As mentioned, Steven has been unfaithful to his partners in the past, the trigger being his own feelings of inadequacy.
I believed that this person that I was dating at the time, I believed I didn't deserve her.
It seems like Steven's coping mechanism for feeling unwanted or inadequate is to seek attention outside of the relationship. And Steven would have felt inadequate in this relationship because Monica had repeatedly told him that he was not meeting her expectations.
In the pods, I remember you specifically telling me, like, we're together, like, I'm gonna get you flowers. The actions matching up with the words, right? So romantic. That was so romantic out there. Thank you so much for the romance.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
TE extraverted thinking is a function that thinks and communicates in terms of standards and competency. Monica has TE as her hero function, the top function, so she would naturally communicate her needs and feelings via whether standards are being met.
Luckily, you're with a modern day woman who will tell you.
Talk to me. Tell me, hey, a little less of that, a little more of these.
A little less butt stabs.
TE is also a function that very confidently expresses and enforces standards onto others. Hence how comfortable Monica is to correct and instruct Steven on exactly what she wants from him.
Are you good?
It's playing. You know what? Give him a hard time for not watching the fireworks with me. He's so scared of me. For you guys. He's so scared of me. He's so scared of me right now. Should be. I'm not fucking around with him anymore.
However, Steven has TE but as a lower function, and our lower functions can be a sensitive spot when they feel criticized, and in this case, Steven would feel very incompetent, inadequate, never being able to meet the high standards of Monica's TE hero.
I don't want to sound materialistic, but I also want, like, to feel special.
Yeah, right. And I dropped the ball on that. Not happy about that.
Another trigger for Steven to be unfaithful was his huge need for emotional expression and reassurance and not receiving it in this relationship. Steven is FI introverted feeling dominant, and all FI types have a need for emotional expression and reassurance, but I think Steven specifically needs it more than anyone else. Steven is super chatty because of his urge to verbalize, externalize every thought and feeling that passes through his mind.
Giving birth is the only time a woman comes close to understanding what it's like when a man has a common cold. Okay?
Are you well?
He needs someone to hold space for him to pour out into, to reassure him, validate him, and respond to him. He is looking for the complementary function FE, extroverted feeling. However, Monica was unable to do that for him, especially when his feelings affected hers.
It's a lot.
What's a lot?
Moving forward with marriage. You know, if suddenly I'm having second thoughts, and next thing you know,
Are you like? I'm so confused that you're
no,
saying this right now.
I know. No,
Like,
I'm
literally. I'm so confused.
I'm not. You know, I'm just.
You are. It's okay. Just say it. Like,
No, I'm not having second.
you're saying things like second. Like, what the fuck? And you're not looking me in the eyes.
Yeah, I know, because I'm trying to think.
boyfriend.
Here, Monica pretty much told Steven off for having fluctuating feelings during this process, which in my opinion is slightly unrealistic. You're literally marrying someone you just met. And how I interpret it is that Monica seems to not understand the nuances of feeling or is unable to sympathize or handle that complexity. She seems to interpret any negative feeling towards the marriage as full-on rejection. Monica also has FI introverted feeling, but as the lowest function, the inferior. And our inferior function takes us a lot of energy to use. Types with feeling inferior in general don't have as much capacity to handle people's emotions and its complexities. In addition, they can find their own complicated emotions very overwhelming. Hence Monica's angry and impatient response towards Steven, when Steven was just trying to talk through his feelings and find reassurance and understanding.
We knew what we were getting ourselves into. These are things that I was very much hoping you had thought through.
Yeah.
Right? Before being so sure.
So for Steven, I think his definition of intimacy is to be able to be his true authentic self with Monica, being able to tell her everything he's thinking and feeling without fear of judgment.
And by the way, I really appreciate you sharing with me, and I want you to feel like you can tell me anything. Like, we're all human.
So then to be criticized so harshly for sharing his emotions would be very, very hurtful.
You okay?
I'm listening.
No, I thought you were like about to cry. Are you okay?
I mean, I'm listening. Okay. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And then the last straw that tempted Steven towards infidelity was their decreased sexual activity.
Sex is amazing, but then when you started like having concerns about the wedding, it makes me be like, well, I'm not just gonna like bend over for my fiance who's now like not sure he wants to get married.
Yeah.
That's why we haven't had it, or else I like would have done it.
Monica and Steven seemed like very sexual people, but for very different reasons. Steven has SE extraverted sensing function with FI introverted feeling. Together, his preference or love language would be for physical expression of love and affection, as well as giving his partner a great sensory experience. And note that we can't generalize that all sensing hero types are going to be horn dogs like Steven. That's not what I'm saying. Even if it is an underlying preference, people can still forego the physical for multiple reasons, like religious or cultural beliefs, or abstaining because they overvalued the physical in the past. Monica has SE child function and FI inferior, both lower functions. SE child loves to engage in sensory experiences in a playful way, and FI inferior would rather express their feelings physically rather than with words because words feel so much more vulnerable.
And you taste really good too. Thank you so much. You're pretty fucking amazing.
Thank you. So are you. Our souls are like the same. I know. Our hearts and our minds.
Wow.
Oh my God.
However, because the lower functions do take more energy to use, Monica's desire to be sexually playful with Steven switches off when she no longer feels good mentally about their relationship.
I just have to feel very safe in this relationship because
I get it. Yeah.
I also wanted to explore Steven's preference for sexual kinks and why he keeps bringing up the request to treat him like a piece of meat.
If I'm yours, feel free to treat me like a piece of meat. Because I think it is so sexy.
In what way?
In everything. It is so sexy to feel wanted.
You want to feel wanted, and I want to feel wanted. Like,
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
And it seems like he interprets being treated like a piece of meat with being desired, which sounds paradoxical at first because a piece of meat sounds objectifying and demeaning. People who are into sexual kinks or unconventional sexual practices have a multitude of reasons why they like it, and it doesn't have to be anything complicated psychologically. However, I wonder if Steven may interpret the aggressive nature of sexual dominance by a woman as an intense level of passion for him. Sexual kinks can also involve a very high level of intimacy in a way because you're doing things to each other and being an extreme version of yourselves that may otherwise be completely unacceptable in the outside world. It's complete acceptance of one another in your most imperfect state.
I want somebody who's not afraid to be imperfect. Here's what I believe. You like someone for their qualities, but you love someone for their flaws.
I've always been drawn to flaws.
And because I think sexual kink is secretly Steven's ultimate love language, I wonder if he was trying to groom Monica into his values.
Now, I am perfectly okay with you treating me like a piece of meat. I think it's hot. I really do. You know, if I come in and you're just like, drop them, I'm like, fucking, let's, okay, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying, like, if you did.
He constantly dropped in references to kink culture so that Monica may eventually share his version of intimacy.
You should be taking the lead in that department, you know? Maybe not necessarily in the sense of like what people's kinks are into and like sub-dom shit, but that's a completely different fucking topic. But as far as feeling comfortable and vulnerable and ready.
Unfortunately, in the end, Steven went looking elsewhere to satisfy both his unmet sexual and emotional needs rather than having an honest but difficult conversation with Monica. And Steven mentioned that he has had therapy for his past cheating, but I do wonder how much he has really reflected and grown through these sessions, because I felt he hadn't really quit his habit of looking elsewhere and that he sort of knew that he might do it again. So he tried to almost warn Monica about it / try to gauge how she would respond.
And for a lot of guys, like there are women that are homewreckers out there that are like, I don't give a fuck what your situation is. I want to suck your dick.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
What's happening?
Well, we were talking.
How did we get here?
You will be tempted in a situation that you've never been tempted before because, you know, like suddenly you have this spotlight on you.
Steven also said that when he cheated on his ex, he knew that he was going to get caught.
I basically slid into a girl's DMs like a dumbass. I got caught, which I knew I would. I was very disappointed with myself.
And I wonder if that means that he wanted to get caught on some level, because that's his way to end things, to abandon ship, rather than confronting problems head on. FI introverted feeling is about your feelings, your internal emotional world. And if it's in the second position, the parent function, this can be overly protective. So FI parent can be very intolerant to ever feeling bad, especially about themselves. And we can deal with negative feelings in either constructive or destructive ways. Steven chose the destructive way, to go for a cheap thrill and instant pick-me-up. You know, I can't stand feeling bad anymore, so I gotta do something that's easy and quick to make myself feel better again. And the constructive way would have been to have a mature and vulnerable conversation with Monica about their conflicts. But that's not easy, and neither a quick fix.
No, I did know what I was doing last night, and I know that it was a stupid decision, and it was coupled with the conversation that we had last night.
Don't you fucking blame me at all.
I'm not
being
blaming
gross.
you. I'm blaming my actions on myself based on how I took our conversation.
Also, via cheating, Steven was able to indirectly express how unhappy he was in this relationship, but blame his sex drive, his impulses, or even the other woman, rather than own up to the fact that he was not happy and probably no longer wanted to marry Monica.
I shouldn't have come on the show.
What a selfish thing to say. You fucking put a ring on my finger, and now you shouldn't have been on the show?
Hi, quick break to say that if you wanted us to analyze your personality type and make sense of your relationships, communication, and decision making, then please find booking details in the description box below. On the other hand, if we focus on Monica and how she was in this relationship, there are things we can reflect on too, even though the end of the relationship is Steven's fault. Essentially, I felt that Monica was undecided or unrealistic about what she really wanted in a partner. She was of one mindset in the pods, her aspirational self, but was of another mindset in the real world, her realistic self. Coming onto this experiment, Monica thought that her old usual way of selecting a partner had historically failed her, i.e. choosing based on external criteria, which is TE extroverted thinking.
I have spent so much of my adult life prioritizing things like what fancy job they had and all the travel they'd done. But like, I'm looking at that mirror and seeing myself for the first time and realizing how wrong I've been doing it.
So then she decided to use this opportunity to choose with her heart instead of her head, to decide with FI introverted feeling instead. Our inferior function can be quite on and off because it takes us most energy to use. We tend to be in this headspace when we have energy, either when we're most happy and feel most secure, or when we feel most desperate and stressed.
I'm a very confident, sure of myself person, but it's hard to be 36 and single.
So the majority of the time, our inferior function is not really at the forefront of our minds, which means we don't really prioritize it. So I think in the pods, Monica was really in her FI headspace, where she enjoyed indulging in her emotional, more delicate and tender persona, and Steven really encouraged her by being his sweet, open, and expressive self.
It is so sexy to feel wanted.
You want to feel wanted, and I want to feel wanted. Like,
Yeah, it's a good feeling. I know, Monica, that I am falling in love with you.
I'm falling in love with you too.
Holy shit.
Like, I love you. Like, you are.
I love you.
You're everything I've been looking for.
Wow. I love you.
I think Monica also really admired Steven based on his reaction to his Italian and then West African ancestry.
But I was so proud to be Italian. Fast forward a few, 3 years ago, my sister does an ancestry.com. It turns out that most of it is primarily a lot of West Africa. Once I found out, of course, I immediately found some books and started looking into Ghanaian and Nigerian cultures.
That's really cool.
This story felt to me like some defining moment that cemented Monica's love for Steven.
He went through his whole life thinking he was Italian, and then his dad found out he was like 3/4 Black. And Steven ran off to a bookstore and bought books about his dad's African cultures and communities. That's who he is.
In essence, I think Monica's FI inferior really looked up to Steven's higher FI, his ability to love and be proud of himself, his identity, his ancestry, no matter what race or nationality. It didn't matter which box he was categorized in. And I'm only projecting Monica's possible interpretation of Steven based on personality type. But, one could argue that Steven would have the benefit of white privilege based on how he looks, and he's probably never faced racial discrimination as a result, so it's much easier for him to have that pride in himself. Versus Monica being mixed race herself, she expressed that she was very confused about her own identity and heritage growing up.
I'm mixed, right? So my mom is from Honduras. Her parents are Honduran, but they are an interracial couple. And then my dad is African-American, Black. He has some Cherokee ancestry that goes down.
So you really are a mutt, girl.
I'm a fucking mutt.
Societal standards would confuse Monica even more because people would have ignorantly assigned her to only one category of race based solely on the color of her skin.
We have been somewhat, I don't want to use, forced to think that we had to fit in one box.
Yeah.
In my childhood, I would be given the standardized tests.
Okay.
That said, what is your race, ethnicity?
Yes.
And I was always very confused.
TE Hero would be very aware of this categorization set by majority thinking and so feel pressure to fit in her assigned box. Whereas FI Inferior would aspire to define her own identity, create her own category, and embrace herself no matter which box she was.
Prior to this experience, I've definitely placed value on things like what prestigious university they went to and what fancy job they have. And he went to a 2-year college. He's an electrician. And I don't give a fuck. I've been looking for him for a really long time.
Despite Monica's aspiration and effort to be more FI introverted feeling, to embrace her softer side that prioritizes emotional connection, openness, and following her heart, once back in the real world, she can't help but return to her old TE extroverted thinking ways.
When it comes to our financial upbringing, I refuse to let that be the thing that ever put space between us.
It was I know I don't have to get you something top quality, like a Kate Spade bag. So
Never get one of those.
something.
It's like a YSL bag.
I don't even know what that is.
Louis Vuitton? You've heard of Louis Vuitton.
TE values achievement, competence, and the ability to forward plan. And I felt that Monica might have started getting the ick because Steven did not prioritize those qualities. In fact, he was sort of relying on Monica to sort him out.
Because you are going to be able to sit there and say, hey, this is how we should plan things out. Do you think that you should sell your place? Do you think you should rent it out? Like, look at these steps. And you're going to set them out in such a particular way where I'll be like, I never would have thought to do that.
In terms of personality type, Monica and Steven's combination where you share the same functions and specifically your hero and child functions are the same and your parent and inferior functions are the same. This combo, in my experience, can be the most difficult and painful dynamic for any intimate relationship, romantic, friendship, or family. And, there are other schools of thought here, but these are my observations. With this combination, initially, you're actually very drawn to each other, even thinking that you're super similar.
You like someone for their qualities, but you love someone for their flaws.
I've always been drawn to flaws.
Believe me, girl, I've been the same way.
Yeah.
You also look up to each other and feel that you can really learn from one another.
I believe that you date or marry somebody for selfish reasons. You do it because they're gonna make you a better person. And that comes from pushing you to look into new ideas. Because in turn, if somebody's making you better, you're gonna do the same to them. You're gonna force them to be a better version of themselves. I don't wanna settle for anything less.
I agree. You're just such a good guy.
However, over time, if you get closer and closer, there's more and more friction and you're capable of making each other feel really insecure and resentful. Firstly, this is because your priorities and way of thinking are actually pretty different because your functions are in a different order.
I mean, I have had no idea what I'm doing for the past 30-something years, but...
I feel like I have had complete knowledge of what I'm doing for the last 36 years until,
Right.
this experiment.
Well, at least...
I've had, everything, locked and loaded. And
at least you have. I feel like I've been kind of winging it and getting lucky my whole life, I'll be honest.
Good job.
Monica with TE and NI, introverted intuition, would tend to prioritize meeting standards, planning for the future, and reading intent over actions, which Steven over time may interpret as high maintenance, paranoid, and inability to have fun and be in the moment. Whereas Steven with SE and FI would tend to prioritize being in the moment, expression of his values, doing and saying what he feels like, which Monica, again over time, may interpret as frivolous, self-indulgent, and emotional neediness. Secondly, if you have and share the same exact functions, it means that there's no complementary functions to respond to each other naturally. And so for this to work, you have to consciously take turns to be the complementary function, which is not in your personality stack. And in Monica and Steven's case, they are both introverted feeling, FI, so both have the need to express themselves, to be the one who's heard, to be the focus of a conversation. So the absence of FE, extroverted feeling, which is to listen, to mirror, to validate, that is a major factor in their incompatibility.
And I was so excited meeting everyone else because all it does is sort of...
I love you to death. I'm obsessed
Am I
with
being
you.
chatty again?
Literally cannot get a word in.
Lastly, when people share the same functions, there can be disagreement over how to use that function properly. And our second function, the parent function, can be quite correcting or imposing in nature. The parent function tends to call things out when it thinks that something is not done properly according to that function. So then when the parent and the inferior functions are the same in the couple, the parent can end up schooling the inferior. And our inferior function can be our most sensitive spot. Our deepest insecurities can stem from this function, whether we're good at it or not. For Steven and Monica, Monica's NI introverted intuition parent would school Steven's NI inferior about not thinking ahead enough, not considering long-term consequences, not appreciating the gravity and deeper meaning behind his words and actions.
We knew what we were getting ourselves into. These are things that I was very much hoping you had thought through,
Yeah.
right? Before being so sure.
Whereas Steven's FI parent would constantly dominate Monica's FI inferior. Steven is naturally so chatty and expressive that he tends to take over the conversation, or his thoughts and feelings would take up all the available space. Thus, Monica might feel unable to keep up, comparatively incompetent at expressing herself as openly and naturally.
And you just so happen to be just as beautiful on the outside.
You're so handsome. So perfect.
And Monica might even start to resent that she must use a lot of energy to push back against Steven in order to make space for herself.
Am I being chatty again?
Literally cannot get a word in.
I'm so sorry.
I'm obsessed with you, but like, Jesus Christ.
I know.
It's very hard for me. I'm like,
I'm
really trying to like, what you have to say, but like, I have to,
You're right. You're right.
I have to share the space. Seriously, it's funny, but it's like kind of not getting funny.
And many might ask, specifically in this scene where Monica shushes Steven, why she fell silent after he stopped talking. And I think that Monica probably just felt that the mood for chatting had gone after she had to shut him up so forcefully. And then when she did eventually start a conversation that she wanted, which was about Tim and Alex, Steven didn't show much interest.
I wanted to talk to you about the Alex and Tim thing. I felt like something weird was going on there. You didn't pick up on that?
I didn't notice them. I kind of noticed them, but they were like way further on the other side. They were closer to you for sure.
In conclusion, this personality type combination, I personally would not recommend for intimate relationships. It tends to only work when there is sufficient distance between the two people. Otherwise, you start hurting each other when you're too close just by being yourselves. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful and interesting. If so, please like, subscribe, and share to support my channel. I've developed my own methods of interpreting personality types. If you would like us to analyze your personality type and make sense of your relationships, communication, and decision making, then please find booking details in the description box below.